Recently, the popular social media app TikTok has been the epicenter of cybersecurity concerns. With over 1 billion active users, some lawmakers are looking to ban the app here in the U.S. They argue TikTok steals data from users, then shares it with the Chinese government. As we wait for the next steps on Capitol Hill, some states are already taking action on their own. Montana currently has a bill which would make it illegal to download the app. It's currently waiting for a signature from the governor, but experts say it's expected to be challenged in court. So joining us live is Clinical Assistant Professor of Management Science and Systems at UB, Kevin Cleary. Kevin, thank you for joining us. Here in New York, we currently have a bill in the works that would prohibit the use of TikTok on state-issued devices. While that's just for government devices, do you think that that could eventually go to all devices? I mean, this is going to be challenged a lot in court, right?
Yeah, so, the way first let's start out with the Senate Bill 419 that's currently expected to pass in the state of Montana. This will impact all users, and so all residents within the state of Montana. And so the way you kind of affect that is very different than when you say, hey, I'm going to do a ban or a prohibition on a government-issued device or a corporate-issued device or a device that's handed to you that's actually managed by someone else that's part of your workplace. And so when we start talking about a ban, that can mean different things depending on how wide the net is that you're trying to cast.
So if you already have it on your phone and you live in Montana and they ban it, how do they enforce that? You can't go to everybody's phone and tell them they have to delete it.
Yeah, and so that's a concern, and that won't happen. The bill is the specific bill in Montana is careful to say that users themselves will not be banned. What that bill is actually saying is two things. One, that TikTok is being forbidden from operating in the state, and that can mean a few different things. But additionally, the more confusing part of the bill is that now the app providers themselves, so mainly Apple and Google, who maintain those app stores, are now being told, hey, you can no longer host this app. And I think that's where a lot of technology experts and privacy advocates have the concern, because there really is no way that we have right now to say, hey, from one state to the next, you can or cannot have this app available for download. Most likely the way it will manifest is similar to how we kind of legislate sports betting today. Sports betting is allowed in some states, not others, or even how we view things on Netflix, let's say. Some content's available in some areas and not others. So there is a precedent and a playbook for this, and so the actual ban most likely will be operationalized the same way we do things for sports betting and video content and things like that.
And you brought up those other apps. So there are security concerns, not just with TikTok. Other apps have them too. Is the cat already out of the bag at this point? Like, how do you fix this? This is a case, again, where the laws have to catch up to the technology.
Yeah, so the way to fix this is a very nuanced and a very big conversation. And on one hand, I'm kind of heartened to hear that the national dialogue is suddenly paying attention to things like this, the privacy concerns that these social networking apps have. Where my concern is we're very singularly focused on TikTok right now, and the concern is much larger than TikTok. And I get why we're looking at TikTok, and there's some specific reasons, some specific connections to the Chinese government that are causing concern. But in my mind, the concern is much larger and more of a social networking and social media concern. And I think where a good starting point is, we're setting a dangerous precedent by having states go in and individually legislate these laws, because now what that's going to happen is, well, who's the next state to then mandate this, and so on. And that's going to kind of lead to an unreasonable patchwork, a complicated patchwork of all these different laws, banning all these different apps in all these different states. One of the areas where I actually think the United States is behind the curve is a codified federal level Privacy Act or Bill of Rights, similar to what the European Union has with something called GDPR. We don't have necessarily something like that in the United States, and I think perhaps that is a good starting point, because then we will have some centralized codified framework to look at, rather than relying on each state to kind of pass their own patchwork and their own interpretation, depending on what the dangers of the day are.
Right, it just gets confusing.
Yeah.
That was Clinical Assistant Professor of Management Science and Systems at UB, Kevin Cleary. Thank you for joining us today on Midday.
Thank you.